All right. Once again, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the Self-Publishing 30 Days podcast, Author Spotlight. I am your host, Rob YB Youngblood, President of Sales for Self-Publishing 30 Days, and your LinkedIn locksmith. I'm excited to have Ernest Crim III here with me on this podcast episode, and where we feature authors, giving them the opportunity to share a little bit about their experience, their backstory, and increasing their visibility, credibility, and profitability. How are you doing today, Ernest?
I'm doing great, brother. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, so thank you for having me.
Well, listen, the pleasure's mine, man. Anytime I get a chance to communicate with fellow authors and put them in a position to showcase their background, their experience, that brings me tremendous joy. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Let's before we even get into your book and everything your book is about, man, give me a little bit of a backstory of who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah, I go by Mr. Ernest Crim III, and I call myself your favorite Black history teacher. And I say that because I'm so passionate about us and passionate about the Black community. And I'm passionate about learning things that impact us and revealing that to us to help us move forward. I think the best way to describe me outside of that and outside of being an author is really just I'm a lifelong learner. And I think that's the reason why I call myself your favorite Black history teacher, or the reason why I love teaching is because I love learning so that I can give it to people. I love learning more than I probably love teaching. And I think that a testament to who I am is really just being fortunate enough to have parents who help mold my curiosity. And I think that for us as a community and people around the country, period, if you can help children foster their creativity and mold that from their childhood and let them keep it into adulthood, those are the people that are more likely to reach their full potential. Yeah. And whenever I was asking questions to my mom growing up and asking questions to my dad, I was hardly ever told to be quiet or shut up. And they would try their best to answer it. And if they couldn't, they would help me find the answer. So the educational process was something that began at home. We would go downstairs if I had a question, and this, of course, pre-internet era, we go find those old dusty encyclopedia world books, man. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, but them books were from the 60s, but I was still learning some stuff. And I was hoping they were updated eventually, but it was still just going through that process. So for me, the question has always been, why are most of us in this situation in America? And I saw that firsthand when I went from my neighborhood on the south side of Chicago to a white neighborhood on the south side for elementary school. So those questions kept coming up. Why does it look different over here? Why do my friends do this? Why do we do this? And then I just kept going down this rabbit hole until eventually I go to college and I almost flunk out of school. And that's when I decided to take Black history. And I took Black history and I was like, man, this is the thing I want. This is the thing I need. And I just kept going into that full force. And I thought it may have been a fad because I had a couple fads in my life. I love basketball still, but I don't really hoop no more. But I still love watching my Bulls. I went through the rapper fad too. Still love hip hop, but I don't really care too much about writing. So here I am, like, man, 16 years later, and I still had that same passion for Black history and helping our people.
I love it, man. I love your energy. You know what I'm saying? I can tell you was from the Midwest, man. You just got the swag about you, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to everybody who's listening, who's from the Chi. And listen, it's so important to be able to latch on to a cause or something greater than you. I still remember those encyclopedias, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was World Books or Britannica. I don't know what it was. I just know they're still sitting on the desk in my mama's crib. You know what I'm saying? And so I definitely understand that. So you come out of the Chi, you go to school, you start studying Black history. How did you end up becoming an author?
Yeah, great question. So when I was in college, I tell my students this all the time because I'm a teacher in real life. So I didn't read a book all the way through until I was in college. So, but I got good grades in high school, and kids will let you know, they know the shortcuts. When we had dial-up internet, like I'm going on Spark Notes, I'm skimming to the answer. I felt like I was working smart. When I got to college, and I took the Black history course my second semester, my freshman year, like I loved it so much that I would start skimming through the book and reading ahead and just finding out different things. And I recall like that following semester, I signed up for another course, Afro 100. And when I was shopping for the books for that course, I started to see like Frederick Douglass's autobiography and a couple other books. And I was like, you know what? let me just grab that book too, because let me just see, because I'm curious. And, shout out to my dad, because he set me up real good, because he gave me like a book credit card. And he paid it off. It was like helping me build my credit, and he was also paying for my books. I don't know if he know yet, but I was sneaking in some books there too. So I was grabbing some of those books, and like the process of me reading those books inspired me so much. I was like, I gotta recreate that. Yeah. I got to be able to produce something that inspires people the way I was. And honestly, there was a lot of self-doubt, because I was thinking, well, I ain't in no way. I'm not a professor. I'm not this. I don't know more than these guys. So like, what can I talk about? Yeah. And I know that when I first graduated and I worked as a social worker, then I began my first job as a teacher. I remember I had a coworker, and he asked me one day, like, what's your New Year's resolution? We were having a conversation, and I said, man, this was probably like 2011 at the time. I said, man, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna start writing my book. This is 2011 at the time. Yeah. And he said, what is it gonna be about? I said, I don't know, something about Black history. I don't know. And I just remember always having that thought in the back of my mind, but never getting started, because I didn't know what it would be about. Yeah. And that process began. Sometimes life puts you in a situation and you're forced to have urgency, and you can choose if you want to accelerate with that urgency, or you can remain complacent and you go in the opposite direction. So you're either going to pull yourself off that cliff, or you're going to fall down. Yeah. So when I dealt with the hate crime in 2016, my wife and I were targets of this hate crime. Like 6 or 7 months after, I was in such a low point emotionally and mentally, that I said, I need to write to get this out, because I don't even think somebody can feel what I'm feeling right now. I shortly saw a therapist after, but nothing was more therapeutic and cathartic for me than actually writing it out. And I started to outline the instances of racism I dealt with, and how learning Black history helped to make sense of the injuries I dealt with psychologically. So that was like, you know what? I'm gonna buckle down. And from that point forward, I made sure I tried to say every day. Sometimes I didn't follow through, but one thing I did do, I would copy and paste what I wrote, and I would keep it on my phone. So like I would add parts to my note section. I would email it back to myself and add it. So it got to a point where I was consecutively going at least a sentence every day, because I got to get this story out. So that's kind of my author origin story.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Everybody has an author origin story. I love yours. Unfortunately, yours had to deal with something that pressed you emotionally and put you in an awkward situation. But oftentimes, that's some of the best work that comes from people's challenges. We both know Eric Thomas, and he talks about how situations or what is it? Information changes situations, right? So the fact that you went through this experience, you're going to provide information to people that helps to change their situation. So tell us, what's the name of your book, and who is your book for?
Yeah, so the name of my book is Black History Saved My Life: How My Viral Hate Crime Led to an Awakening. And my book is for a few different groups of people. Primarily, I would love for high school students to read this. And it serves it's a dual purpose. So for Black students, or for people who are melanated and have experienced racism, it will help you navigate through it, because I feel like a lot of books about race leave out the 90s and the 2000s. And my book talks about that empty period where we hear about Rodney King, and we don't start hearing about these issues again until around Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin. So I talk about everything in the midst of that. And honestly, with issues with colorism, police issues, and identity issues or whatever, I think that all of our kids can relate to that, because when you see me go through the process of how I found a purpose in it, I think it will help them. And I've had kids actually tell me that for white students who might read this book, or even white parents, it's going to teach you about the experience that Black folks are dealing with in a genuine and authentic way. I'm not holding any punches, but I'm also showing you how you can use this transformatively. And how in some ways, they can even figure out how to be allies, So for those who are curious about our experience and want to help more, that's going to be good for you. For Black parents and parents who are melanated, who experience racism, it's going to let you know what you need to do. Because maybe a half of my book talks about what my mom did to help me out, and what my dad did, and what my grandmother did, and the mindset approaches they gave me, and the fact that my grandmother used to make me and my sister read Jet magazines before we watched TV over her house. Like, we had to sit down, and we could not. And she only had 2 channels back then. Anyway, she had a big screen TV with no cable. It was crazy.
No cable, no cable.
on cable. So we
Yeah.
over here, we got to read the Jet magazine and tell her about something, do book reports. And I used to hate it. I tell you, I couldn't stand reading. But now with my kids, what you reading this week? What's the book about? You
Yeah.
know? So like it's for me, it's for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if you are really concerned about Black issues, regardless of how you look, it's going to give you a vantage point you haven't gotten before, because I'm telling you my story, but then I'm incorporating history too.
Yeah.
And I'm letting you know how we can move forward as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So let's talk about your process in becoming an author. You know, most times people listen to this. This podcast is catering to people who aspire to be authors, those who are already authors. They want to pick up some ideas. Let's talk about your process. I mean, what challenges did you have to endure or overcome in order to get your book done?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. And this is going to help a lot of people. When I first was thinking about writing a book, I had a friend who actually self-published a poetry book. And I can't remember the name of the website, but this is again like 2010, 2011. So I didn't see too many people who were self-published. So I remember learning the website from him and looking it up one day, just kind of seeing what he went through. And then I didn't revisit it again until I began writing. And that's when I found out about, like, you know, Kindle Direct and Amazon and everything. I started looking up YouTube videos and just really, like, folks, 5 years is 100 years in the internet, because there are some things that didn't exist in 2010 that existed in 2016, you know, and then vice versa. Now that we're in 2021. So I just wrote, and in my mind, I said, I feel like this is a big story, because it was a viral situation. So I thought a big publisher might bite. But at the same time, I said, well, I think I might want to keep most of my money. I didn't know how the process went. So I'll tell you this. I was like, you know what? I'm a huge hip hop fan. And I know most of my favorite rappers, who were especially from the South, they put it in that trunk and they got it the way they had to get it. They sold them copies outside the show. They, you know, and then I would always hear about them making like $7-10 per CD versus like a few cents per album or whatever. So when I finished my book, I did try one publisher. Then the only reason I tried was because I knew most of their books were about the stuff I was talking about. But this is a blessing in disguise, though, because they said no, and my book had a completely different title. Like, I was still unsure about how I wanted to approach some of the stuff. So I had like a history portion, then I had like self-help reflection questions. And for my book, that didn't work right. So my editor later told me to get rid of that, and that's what I did. But after I got rejected, I found my title when I went to a college fair, and I was like, yo, how am I gonna get people to come to my section? And I don't even have nothing to sell except I want to speak at their school. So I said, I was thinking one day, I was like, man, okay, I'm gonna say, ask me how Black history saved my life. I said, boom, that's it. So I went to Office Max, man. I got a poster. It was a little bogus, cheap poster too. And I put it on there. And man, I had so many people come up to me. They was like, that's a good question. So when I left, I took a picture of the poster board and I put it on, I think I put it on LinkedIn actually. And I said, and I posed a question to them, and I got so many responses. I said, well, that's it. That's the title. So from that point, I hired a book consultant. Like, man, she just one little quick hourly rate. And then I hired an editor, close friend of mine who's a teacher as well. And I went through it that way. And I just kept looking up stuff. And again, I went back to that hip hop mindset. I said, this is 2020, 19, whatever. Like, I don't need them, you know? And if my book sells a lot, I'm probably only gonna make as much as I would sell, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I was doing it independent.
That's right.
So, and then for me, my story is so personal, I don't even want to risk giving my rights, my story. I wrote the whole thing, no ghostwriter. I don't want to give it to anybody. And I tell everybody, I'm pushing this the whole decade. Like, so I'm pushing this to, I don't even know what I'm writing about next. So this my first album. You know what I'm saying? My Reasonable Doubt. My
it's a reasonable. You're not.
You know?
Absolutely. Come on, man. Come on.
Wherever I go, I'm pushing it, and you know, so far it's been a blessing. I woun't trade it for the world.
I love it. We're talking to Ernest Crim III, man, out of the Shy. He's a phenomenal energy, and really, you know, one of the things that I want to ask you as we land the plane is, let's talk about impact, man. I mean, you wrote this book a few years ago. You know, what has been the impact of this book upon the readers?
Man, you know what? That's one of the most humbling things, because When I tell you that I wrote this book, so from March of 2017, I finished it like, man, a day before New Year's 2018. I gave myself a deadline and I finished it. Then I like took a long break because I was so confused.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking like, man, I'm the only person that ever read my book. And I think it's good. Like I think I'm a good writer. Like I had some classes in college where like, I got some bad marks on my paper and everything. But the thing I remember about thinking what my thought process was, but I'm writing and it's not for a grade. It's for expression. It's art. And I don't care what a professor will think. Like it was the same process I had with like, I'm not about to go, Lord willing, I get my PhD one day, but like I don't want to have to go and give them a dissertation, pay them to write my book. So I'm about to write my book now, and I'm gonna go out on a whim, and hopefully people receive it. Like nobody, the first person to read my book was a year later, and that was my editor. And she don't hold punches. Like she does that. Like she teaches and she edits, and she'll critique it in a second and keep it real with you. When she sent it back, there was some changes I had to make, but the overall story, she liked it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, and she was white, so I'm thinking she was able to get something from it, and she wasn't my primary audience initially. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put this out, and man, like I had the reviews. That was the nervous part. The Amazon reviews from people I did not know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, they like it. I had somebody say they want to get it to their kid. Somebody from Chicago that said they loved it.
Yeah.
It was like all fives, maybe a couple fours. And it was like one critique was like just really like, because it's not a traditional writing style.
Yeah.
I'm writing like I think and I talk.
As you talk, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I wanted people to feel that because I love James Baldwin. I love Ta-Nehisi Coates. I love that style. So I've had people message me and say like, yo, this book changed my life. Literally, Black History saved my. I had a former student, bro, that was a phenomenal young man. I got in touch with him again on Instagram. He said he wanted to buy the book. I said, bro, I'm sending this book to you. Just read the book. Let me know whatever. And he kept messaging me a few months later. He was just like, Crim, I can't even, I don't like, I could I could relate to this chapter. Like just feeling them, their minds awakened the same way my mind had to gradually, or the way it did in college, was the most fulfilling thing. And when I hear strangers say that, like my grandmother told me, her friend who's a professor at DePaul said every high school should have this book. I'm like, okay, I'm on to something.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I began to realize that it's not about the skill, it's not about the art, it's not about how great it is. It's about now you have to make sure the right people see what you got.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you the coldest dude in the gym warming up.
That's right.
LA Fitness.
Nobody at midnight. Nobody. You wasn't with me when I was in the gym.
Right.
Well, listen, as we land the plane, Ernest, I just want to say I'm godly proud of you and what you've created. Hold on one second. And definitely want to be there as a part of your success. So remind us, the name of your book is How Black History Saved My Life, or Black History Saved My Life. Give me the correct title.
So it's Black History Saved My Life, and the subtitle is How My Viral Hate Crime Led to an Awakening.
And where can people find your book?
So they can find that first and foremost on my website. Get it directly from me. I'll sign it. I'll send it. And of course, as an indie publisher, I'll see more that way.
Yeah.
But if you like in a rush and you really want to read it after hearing this, you can go to Amazon. You can find that, and you'll get it delivered through Prime. So you have to do it the next day.
Excellent. Well, Ernest, listen, we are excited about your growth. I have one last question for you. So I know you said you're going to ride this until the wheels fall off. You're going to push this for the next decade. But let's say, for example, you decide that you want to write your next best-selling book, right?
Yeah.
And my team is self-published in 30 days. We was going to send you anywhere in the world to write this book. Where would you travel to?
Ooh, man. I love that. I see why you say that for the end. Oh man, you know what? I would go, and I'm gonna narrow it down to one spot because I could talk a lot and just give you all these connections. I'm going to say I'm going to have to go to West Africa, and I'll say I'm gonna say Ghana, because when I traced my ancestry on my father's side, AfricanAncestry.com, it was traced paternally through Ghana. And I've never been to Africa. I would love to just take in that vibe, that energy, and also just learn like the thought process, like the trail we had to walk before we got on that ship. Unfortunately, I think that would put me in such a creative space that something would come out.
I love it, man. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to the day where you are posting on the gram or Facebook, LinkedIn, that you're about to take that trek, man, because I've asked a number of people that question, and out of the number of people that I've interviewed, I would say 3 or 4 I've mentioned the motherland. 3 or 4 have mentioned the motherland. So definitely, man. Well, listen, Ernest, I'm so appreciative that you were able to invest some time with me here on the Self-Publishing 30 Days podcast, Author Spotlight. And for those of you who are listening, definitely support Ernest and find him on. You can find him on LinkedIn, right, Ernest? You can find you on LinkedIn and Ernest Crim III. Check the notes for his information, where you can find his book. But I want you to remember, operating your gift, because your gift is going to make room for you. Be encouraged, be blessed, but most of all, continue to share the faith. And like I said, the way that you do that is by operating your gift, because your gift will make room for you. We'll see you next time. Peace.